We can hear all.
All right. I'm going to go ahead and get us started here. There's kind of two things that I want to do today. And the first one is all about innovation, okay? So let me go ahead and share my screen. Share my screen. Here we go. Yeah, button. Okay. So what I have here is a normal home page, and I'll go into the modules, and this is kind of the first activity that I want to do. And it's all about trying to understand what a computing innovation is, and I'm really kind of thinking about it. So let's pick a computing innovation. What I want to do is maybe get some ideas from you as far as different innovations that we can talk about. So what makes a computing innovation? I mean, what do you think is a brand new thing having to do with computing?
Quantum computing?
Quantum computing, okay. I'll put it in the chat. So quantum computing as an innovation. Yeah, I think that would count, okay. Now, why do we think of that as a, quote, computing innovation?
It's new and it makes it run faster.
Right, it's new, right? Okay, so I think that's the kind of the first important thing, right? If it's going to be a computing innovation, it has to be new. So yeah, that's one aspect, right? The other one, what else would it have to be a computing innovation? Really,
it has to do something that can work.
Yeah, you nailed it, right? It has to be about computing, because otherwise it's just an innovation, it's not a computing. So quantum computing actually would work, right? That is a computing innovation.
So
what is? Go ahead.
I guess I'll be again. No.
Okay. All right. Yeah. So, any other computing innovations?
Joel said machine learning.
Okay, well that's quite the innovation. So yeah, definitely machine learning. I'm seeing solid state drives in the chat. Again, that's a certainly a computing innovation, right? So we have some AI in general. That's pretty huge. Absolutely a computing innovation. So yes, we have some really good examples of what a lot of these can be. Let's pick one. I guess I'll take a quick poll. Which one do you guys want to pursue? Who votes for AI?
I.
2. Okay, that's quite a few. Who votes for just machine learning, which is part of AI, but not as strong? All right. How about quantum computing? I saw one vote already. Okay, there's a prioritization. I love it. Okay. All right. Okay. I have a hidden agenda for not wanting to do too many of these innovations. And the reason is that I want you to do some of them later for the AP exam. But I think we can definitely pick one of these. And let's see. I'm gonna make an executive decision to do quote AI. But the truth is that that's probably a little too broad. And besides, most of AI these days is what they call deep learning. So I might just really focus on that. So let's look at that kind of deep learning specifically. First kind of thing that I want to say is exactly what is the innovation. Okay, so if you haven't heard about it, let me tell you what deep learning is. This is a machine learning technique that it has a special feature, and namely that the machine doesn't just learn one thing. Like, for example, it doesn't just learn when to hit the fire button, but it actually learns a lot of concepts that lead up to it. So it might learn to look at a screen and recognize enemies, and then from that, learn to recognize the position and velocity of those enemies, learn to recognize any weapons that they may be carrying, and just based on all of that, make a decision as to whether to fire or not. Okay, so it's that's what's deep about it, is that it has to do learn a lot of different things to get to what you really want it to learn. Okay, now what would be the effects of having this technology? Okay, and so it's an innovation. Innovations almost always come with positive effects, good things that come out of them, and negative effects, bad things that come out of them. So what do you think might be an effect, either positive or negative, of something like machine learning or deep learning or AI, if you will?
The Google Deep Learning AI can perfectly predict the stock market and predict what stock investments would raise and lower the stock market.
Okay, so what are you claiming for this AI? Are you predicting that it actually does predict the stock market?
Yeah, it can perfectly, but they shut it down because they considered it to be evil.
Interesting. I have to push back on that. It would be, I mean, I would love for that to be true, but I find it hard to believe that anything can actually truly predict the stock market. I mean, it might give you some good ideas, right? But out and out prediction, I think I'd be cautious of claiming. I suspect Google would too. And if somebody could really do that, then they probably would just use it to print cash. And I know that
That's
Google
why
has a lot
Google
of things.
stopped it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But like I said, I don't. I just don't believe that it worked quite that perfectly. I'm sure that it was competitive, shall we say, right? But there's too many people that actually do that for a living that I'd be shocked. Yeah, you know, it can give you probabilities. You might be able to say something like, you should invest in high tech, right? Or you might even be able to say there's a good chance that the stock market will go up by 10% over the next year. But I wouldn't claim more for it. Now, but let's take it as a given, okay? What would that mean? Suppose that we did have something that could predict the stock market. What would be an effect of that, positive or negative?
Zoom on all the computers. Like, just get zoom on all the computers.
We could manually simulate a boom in the stock market.
So simulate a what in the stock market?
Boom.
Okay, right. And how would that help us or hurt us?
Well, our economy would certainly benefit from it.
Okay. And go ahead.
Turn it up. What do you? No.
Oh, did anybody else have something? I thought I heard somebody trying to come break in.
I turned. I was like, command.
Oh yeah, because you took it out now.
Okay. What about some other uses of machine learning? What other things could we have that might affect us? Where do you usually run into AI?
I didn't have to do anything.
Okay, chatbots. That's definitely a place that you find them. Do you find them helpful, annoying?
Very annoying.
Video games are, for a while AI would have died if it wasn't for video games.
Really would.
Yeah, NPCs, very good. Yeah. So where else does this technology help or hurt you?
Uh,
Oh, right, captions. For security purposes, of course.
UAVs? Are these autonomous aerial vehicles that you're thinking? Or underwater autonomous
UAV
vehicles?
stands for?
UAV?
They both exist. I'm wondering which one you're going after.
Probably referring to the one that like flies above.
So let me share with you kind of I guess I'm going for the frightening aspect. If you are convicted of a felony, and of course none of us ever will be because we're just not that. But one of the things that the judge will do is we'll look at kind of context to provide sentencing. And part of that context is how likely are you to do it again? So it used to be that a judge would look at letters that people might write on your behalf, what the lawyers said, what the victim said, what you yourself said, and kind of take all that into account. And they still do that. But they also, they now have a program that can kind of take a look at your information and then make a determination. This is a high-risk person, this is a low-risk person, medium risk, and that can then be used directly for sentencing. So your sentencing for committing a felony might actually be greatly influenced by a artificial intelligence. What do you think of that?
A judge that uses an AI, the AI can never be biased.
The AI can do what? Have bias
Never
or
be
not
biased.
have bias? Never be biased. Okay, so so that's certainly a statement, right? Let's take it at face value for now. If the AI is not biased, then what is the effect of having the AIs participate in sentencing?
You just analyze your net history stuff, like to figure out what type of risk you have.
Any ideas?
What's the question again?
Well, if we're taking as a given that an AI cannot be biased, and an AI is participating in giving sentences, right, recommendations for sentences, then what are the effects of having such an AI in the, I guess, judicial system? Is this great? Is this bad? Is this, what do you think?
It may be able to determine like if someone is truly guilty or not.
Okay, so you might actually think of it as determining guilt, right?
Yeah.
All right. So let's add that to the list. I'm reading the description that it has no emotion, right? Do you consider that a positive or a negative?
It could very well be a positive if you're trying to catch the right guy.
Mm-hmm. Right. So it wouldn't necessarily be biased against somebody, for example, right? Is that what you're thinking?
Yeah, like someone could be looking totally shady, and to an AI, they could dig through like all their info and find out they're actually not a bad person. They just look like a bad person. Well,
Right.
a human on the other hand, they'll be super biased on the way they look.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So yeah, I can see that. What else? That's a really good question. Look like a bad person. What does that mean?
Based on the activities you
Okay.
do.
So while we're puzzling about that, I want to ask kind of a general question to you, which is, how would the AI actually be able to make that determination? I mean, somebody said earlier, there could be a bug in it. What would we do about that if it has a bug, right? So that I find as concerning. But just in general, how do you think we would even approach trying to program an AI that could make a decision about the risk of a convicted felon?
Make an AI do it.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, there is such an AI right now that exists. I'm just asking how you think maybe we could, program it
Make it self-repairing.
Self-apparent, yeah. Okay. It's actually, I mean, it's honestly exceedingly hard, and it's the reason that we can even consider that today is because of this innovation called deep learning that I was talking about. And what we do with deep learning is we don't actually program the computer so much as we show lots of examples. So in this case, we could write all the facts about a person that we think are relevant and then say, oh, and this person was a high risk. And then the next person and say, this was also a high risk. And then another person and say, this was a medium risk, and so on. And there would be like an honest to goodness human being that would make that decision. This example is for a high risk person. This example is for a low risk person, and so on and so forth. At the end of that, right, then the machine would look at those descriptions, would look at those classifications, you know, high risk, low risk, medium risk, and would essentially learn to mimic that decision making. So when you show it a new person, it will go, oh, that person is most likely to be high risk based on all the examples that it has seen. Does that make sense? Okay. So based on that, I want to try to address some of these questions that you guys are bringing up in the chat. These are really good questions. And one of them is, would you make it go into testing before letting it control something that has a lot of risk? Absolutely, right? But so for example, how would we let it go into testing? Let's say that I gave it 100,000 examples to learn from, right? And now it thinks it has a pretty good idea of what to do. So then we'll go back to it and we'll say, here are 1,000 new examples that it has never seen before. And we can have it categorize them, right? And then we have humans look at those categories and say, yes, we agree, okay? So if it does a good job with those, we'll go, okay, it's ready for prime time. Now, before going further, can anybody tell me anything about the Volkswagen or VW emissions scandal? Can anybody describe that if you've heard about it?
I haven't heard of it.
Well, you have a box of infinite wisdom right in front of you. Just look it up.
Has anybody heard about this scandal?
Mm-hmm. I'm gonna Google it real quick.
Okay. So this is actually kind of an interesting thing, and that is that the government sets standards that says that, for example, a diesel engine can't pollute more than this amount. Okay. And yeah, absolutely right there, Jackson. The way that the government enforced this was it actually ran the car in a certain way, right? Always the same way. So the VW engineer said, oh, we can actually check if we're being run in that particular way, then we'll have low horsepower, and so it doesn't pollute as much. But if you're not running us that way, then we'll actually have more horsepower. It's a nicer car to drive, if you will, and it actually pollutes more. So what ended up happening was that people loved having a high-performance car. It was actually really nice to drive, and yet it was treated as though it was really, really good for pollution, because when it was tested for pollution, it didn't create as much particulates in the atmosphere. So this is a case of deliberate. When you're testing me to see how I behave really nicely. But when you're not testing me to see how I behave, I'll go ahead and do whatever I want. And that's what VW did. They're in deep trouble because of it. But you could imagine that you could have a machine learning, an AI program that could be taught to behave a certain way when it was being tested, but to actually do something different when it was not being tested. That would be terrible, wouldn't it? I mean, there's absolutely no assurance that this does anything that's good for us. It may just simply always say, everybody's high risk, right? I've analyzed it carefully and that's my decision. Or it might do something like, oh, what zip code does this person live in? Ah, they come from this part of town. No, they're low risk. We like those people. Oh, wait, they're in that other part of town. Then they're very high risk. And you would understand why that would probably not be a good thing for something that's doing sentencing guidelines, right? Okay. So yeah, we could do it. But we do have a problem in that we don't know when we're testing it whether we're really getting an accurate situation, right? Because of fraud like VW. Some other things that I wanted to do. Okay, so yeah, going back to the learning aspect, one of the things that's scary sometimes about machine learning is that you don't really know what the machine actually learned. All you can do is look at its behavior, okay, and see how it behaves. I have kind of bad news for you. That's the way that everything is. So if you're taking, for example, an algebra class, there's really no way to know what you've learned in algebra. Instead, what we do is we say, here's the problem, see if you can solve it. And we judge you based on that, right? That's how we grade. I don't know whether you really learned the rules of algebra correctly or whether you learned something different, but it seems to work correctly most of the time, right? If you see what I'm trying to get at. So maybe the AIs are picking up on something that's not what we want them to pick up on. Quick example of that. Again, I give it lots of information about a person and then how high risk or how low risk they are. Maybe one of those bits of information that I give it is race. And maybe the person who actually classified the examples into high risk or low risk is totally biased. And they think, say, that Hispanics are always high risk. That would be bad for me. So if that happens, then the machine would look at all this information and he would make a determination. He would say, oh, look at that. If race is H, then this should be a high risk. And most of us just kind of implicitly trust the computer, right? You know, like we pretty much believed at the beginning, well, there's no bias, there's no emotion, so this is going to be a fair assessment. But like some of you pointed out later, we don't know that. It depends on what he learned from. And he could have actually just been picking up the biases of some person and then now presenting them as though they were facts because it's an impartial computer. So that would actually be even more dangerous than having a person do it, because with a person, at least we know what we're getting, right? This could be totally biased. So that's scary. Okay. We have a question about how would it analyze the evidence? Okay. Answer: it doesn't. It is up to some person when he's training the system to actually say this is the information that he should look at. Okay. Again, that's very frightening because in itself that's a bias, right? That's an editorial bias that says this stuff is not important. And by the way, one of the ways that people try to achieve non-bias is, for example, by not giving the computer information that we would say is irrelevant. Like, for example, why are you telling the computer about race? That shouldn't be a factor, so let's not tell it about race. That actually works really well, except sometimes you can find surrogates for that. Like, for example, zip code, right? Or some other things that we may not even be aware that are actually teaching the computer about to build biases in its machine learning. So again, you have to be very, very careful with that. Yeah, by the way, just a quick notice, deep learning is actually neural networks. They're just neural networks that have many, many, many layers. That's what's, quote, deep. Okay. Elements of time, absolutely. Okay. And how would you program a machine to not be socially unacceptable or, quote, politically correct? That's really, like I said, that's actually a major problem. Okay, so I don't know that people really know the answer to that yet, right? So let's go back to what we started with. Machine learning is an innovation. It is an innovation because it's something relatively new, right? You might make it more of an innovation by saying is machine learning applied to sentencing guidelines, okay? Why do we, it has to do with computing, right? Because it's computing neural networks. Now, positive effects. With everything that we said so far, what can you give me as maybe a positive effect of this?
More peaceful streets.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
Like more peaceful streets.
Okay, all right. What else? I mean, I like the idea that it's comprehensive, right? You know, I mean, you might get 10 pages of information for a person. After reading one page, you might be like, oh, forget it. You know, lock him and throw away the key. But maybe the more you read, the more fair you would be in a certain sense. At least consistent. Everybody gets the same shot. Would you believe that? You know, yeah. Use of patterns that we humans can recognize. Again, I think that would be a positive thing. Maybe we're missing something that is in that packet that would help us identify people that are low risk. That would be great, right? Okay. What about negative impacts of having this technology?
It could become self-aware and do what thinks it's best.
It could, right? Now, I want to try to keep this from being totally speculative, right? So it's kind of a big leap from, I learn from examples. I see characteristics of people and, you know, their packet. And from that, I decide if they're high, low, or medium risk. It's a big jump from that to self-awareness. So that might not be a huge downside, right? What kind of downsides can we see that might happen in the next year or 2 years? That's difficult sometimes, right? And sometimes with innovations, you know, you can either get so hung up on the positives that you see absolutely no dangers. It's all good. Sometimes with innovations, you can get hung up on the negatives, and you know that's all you can talk about, and so you don't see anything good. I want to definitely encourage you to be able to see both positives and negatives of each innovation. And by the way, about net neutrality, I don't want to pick it up today, but let's say that we talk about it on Thursday, and let's talk about it in the same way. Let's say what it is, and let's try to find some positive and negative effects of having it. Okay. Jury nullification. That's a phrase I wasn't expecting to find in this class. That's pretty exciting, really. So anyway, so yeah, sometimes the jury will actually return a not guilty verdict, even though the evidence very clearly points to guilty. They just kind of feel that people shouldn't be prosecuted on that. So, you know, like jaywalking, oh, the heck with it. Not guilty. I don't care if you crossed, you know, an interstate. That's one of the things that human juries do. Perhaps a computer wouldn't, right? So that would be an impact. And are you trying to count that as positive or negative?
Possibly.
Oh, let's see. Oh, okay. Yeah. Welcome back. Okay. It could be either. Okay. I think that's actually a first statement to make, because you know, with jury nullification, some people are big fans of it. They see it as a very democratic process. And other people see it as a very arbitrary process. It depends on what jury you get, right? So it doesn't. It's like maybe this defendant is more sympathetic, so the jury decides to nullify the thing, whereas they shouldn't, right? So I could see either as being that. Okay. All right. I want to go back to what we said earlier about the machine learning actually having those biases. Maybe we don't know it simply because it picks them up from the instructors that are biased. And because of that, this could actually have a negative impact of working against a certain group of people, whoever that group of people might be. Maybe it's based on race, socioeconomic background, zip code, whatever, right? So the actual intent of how this software is supposed to work, and what we said was this is learning how to predict or how to classify convicted felons into low, medium, or high danger, so that so they can be sentenced appropriately. Well, that could just give a whole bunch of bad sentences, right? So let's see if we can have kind of an impact to a broader community. And part of that is simply assuming that the software works as advertised. I mean, it does exactly what it's supposed to do. Then we saw some kind of positive impacts. It is at least consistent across all people, right? So if you have very close on paper to somebody else, you should get a close sentencing. So we could say that's a positive impact. We have some negative impacts in that it might reify or hide. It could be consistently wrong, right? Yeah, I mean, that would be a negative impact, right? When a coach says that they want to see consistency, they don't mean lose every game. So yeah, that could be problematic, right? So that's and like I said, it to me it has to do with the fact that we tend to believe the computers as being unbiased, so that we don't necessarily suspect, oh my God, are we actually putting away everybody that wears a tie? Maybe that's what it keyed off of to say this person is dangerous, or maybe they wear glasses, right? Sometimes it's difficult to know what it learned, right? So that's a negative impact. Okay. Now, can you find any group of people who would be particularly impacted by this? Okay. And I don't mean like society as a whole, but just like a small group of people, or even a large group of people, but a very specific group of people.
Mafia.
Maybe like some people that are wrongly accused. Like, I don't know.
Well, those in the legal profession, absolutely. One thing that I like about talking about those in the legal profession is that it's not talking about the ones that are directly impacted by the intended meaning of this software, right? This software is supposed to help you classify convicted felons, right, after they're determined or they're found guilty. So yeah, they're affected, but maybe there's other groups. So we're saying, lawyers and judges and so on, people in high powers. Okay. We're making it broader, executive decision makers. Again, the direct one, anyone who's even charged with a crime, even if they haven't been found guilty, right? These are all groups of people that are affected. But let's pick one of these. Let's say that we narrow it down to those in the legal profession. So why are they particularly impacted? And in what ways? Can we connect the dots to say what the impact really is to them? Job loss could be an issue, right? So perhaps there are, a small army of people who work for courts today, that when somebody is found guilty, it is their job to determine whether people are low, medium, or high risk. And maybe I don't need those people anymore. No, this might be legal clerks that we're not going to have. Right? Yeah, higher data processing speed. That's not really an impact. That's a fact, right? But potentially less cost due to such higher speed. Maybe what you're getting at here, we're talking about higher speed, right, is that we can make a decision a lot faster. So whereas before, a person would have to read all these documents and think about them and then say, okay, so I think this is a medium risk. Now we just take those. They're in a database already somewhere in some kind of computer readable form. We run this program. Let's say it takes 5 minutes. That'd be a very long time to make a decision. Boom. right? Superior decision making makes the lawyers less effective at their jobs. I kind of like that. I think it's a little cynical, but yeah, I could see, for example, that a defense attorney would now have a harder time trying to claim, oh, but my poor client had all these extenuating circumstances, right? Um, and uh, and conversely, now the district attorney can't just paint you as a villain without being able to actually talk about the things that this program looks at. Okay, so you're right here when you say attempt to make their clients appear unthreatening using the parameters of the AI, right? You know, that's what they would immediately tackle because they would know that these are the kinds of things that the AI is looking at. Okay, so yeah, the difference of an innocent person going to jail and a guilty person getting off scot-free, you know, it might recommend probation as opposed to going to jail because it's such a low risk. That's the kind of thing that we hope gets done consistently, right? So yes, that is a definite impact. Okay, I want to come back to this. This is actually something that's kind of a recurring theme. So what I wanted you to do is to look at what exactly is the computing innovation, be able to kind of describe it in a sentence, 2 or 3 at most. What is a positive effect of it, right? So for our innovation, positive effects, we kind of went for fairness. Negative effect, there might be hidden biases, right, that are being perpetuating certain kinds of discriminatory policies. They might even do it with the veneer of being fair, and so you have discrimination without the overt, oh, we just don't like these kind of people. And if it's overt, then we can fix it. If it's hidden, if it's covert, then we don't even know that there's a problem sometimes. So it becomes real difficult to address, right? So I find that as very bad. And we also try to identify some people that are impacted by the innovation. And I think what I want you to learn about that is that we want to be able to connect dots. So, you know, these particular lawyers are going to get impacted because now they no longer have to do this assessment on paper. So there are fewer billable hours. Maybe the legal profession isn't going to be as lucrative, as attractive as it was before. So, you know, some kind of at least line of reasoning that gets you from the computer to the actual people involved. Okay, so I want to kind of continue this offline. So let me. No, that's nice. Let me go ahead and show you the activities. We did this. So I know that some of you can't take this during class, so I definitely encourage you to go to this discussion and add your comments. You can just do a post that follows up on the prompt and says what you're thinking about the innovation, what some impacts might be. We also did some before, so this is another discussion, you know, on privacy that we could open up offline. So if you can't make the in-class discussions, you can go there and add something. I know there's a lot of you that have things that you want to add, even the ones that are here in the class period. There's just things that, you know, it's hard sometimes, the logistics of trying to talk without actually being able to see each other. So go ahead and post and let me know what you're thinking, okay? So I want to encourage that a lot, all right? Now, the other activity that I want you to do is right here. After class, I want you to go back to that Blown to Bits book. And remember, you can access it from one of the home links. It is right here. It's on the resources. There's just a link to the book. So here's the PDF that you can just download. Absolutely everything there, okay? So you can do that and bring it. You can also look at this page that just has some of them. So here is all of chapter 1. And you see this goes up to page 17, right? That's the page numbers that I'm talking about. So chapter 2. Right? Right here is where it kind of starts talking about some computing innovations. I want you to go through this and actually read about 10, 12 pages, I think, 14. And think about those in terms of innovations. What innovations are actually being introduced? How are those beneficial? How are they good? How are those malignant, right? How are they impact a certain segment of society, a certain group of people, maybe students, maybe athletes, maybe musicians, whatever, right? These people are really affected by this. So I want you to do that, not by Thursday, but by next Tuesday, okay? And then other than that, I want to tackle Unit 1 through, okay? So anyway, thank you very much for all the stuff that you've been putting on the chat. I really like this, the information here. Some of you have seen some AI programs that I haven't, and that's really, really useful. I encourage you to take a look at the chat maybe offline and see some of the suggestions here. Like this tool that guesses what you're drawing. I'm going to try it out after class. I mean, that just looks amazingly cool. All right, any last words on computing innovations before I move on to something else?
How do we get to this website right here?
Okay. All right. So I want to change text, and I try to do a little bit of each at every lesson. We'll do a little bit of kind of notice about computing, and then a little bit about programming. So let me go over to our programming system. And this is Snap. And again, you can get the link from the home of our course website. So here is Snap, the programming platform. And I want to make sure that you guys are logged into this. So let me show you this. Right here, there is a cloud icon. If you click on that, it should say logged in as. So I was logged in as Ruben Gamboa. Right now, I logged out, so I can now sign up. And this is what you do to sign up. So let's see if Ruben G is taken. They want my birth date, seriously? October. And okay, everybody close your eyes. Oh, or before. Ha! Perfect. So I'm before 1997. I think that was safe. I must say, I'm turning 50 this year, so I'm a little sensitive. We have to provide an email address, so let me do that. One that he doesn't already know. Okay. I agree to the terms of service. I know that we talked about this earlier. I told you that I usually just hit agree. Some of you are smarter than that and might actually click on this and take a look. Go for it. Same goes for the rules of privacy. Okay. I'm just going to hit OK. We'll talk later in this class about how smart that is. Okay. So now this says that it has built me an email. An account, and it has sent me an email to confirm that. Let's see how quickly it does that.
Yeah, it's just to prevent bots from signing up.
Hello, really, really quickly. Okay. Well, here we go. Welcome to Snap. And so it sent me an initial password. Okay, that's good. I can go here. Now I can log in. I said Ruben G. I give the password. I'll hit OK. And that's it. I'm not connected. I can actually change password, give my old password, provide a new one. Oh, that failed. Sorry. Okay. And I just built a new account. Okay. So make sure that you really are logged in. I'm not. Let's hit login. Okay. So now it says log out Ruben G. So I really am logged in. So anyway, that's that's how you have an account. Really important, do this before you start working on the assignment, okay? So after that, what I want you to do is you're going to build some kind of a program. Let's build this program. Okay, so this puts the pen down, so the turtle is leaving a mark where it goes, and it repeats 4 times. It moves forward 100 steps, so it draws a line that's 100 pixels long, turns 90 degrees, and keeps doing that. So this should build a circle. What am I saying? A square. Okay, there we go. Builds a square. So now I want to save it. Okay, and I'll go to this file icon, and I'll hit save. And it asks me to. By the way, I can do it on my browser or I can do it on the cloud. I actually want to do it on the cloud, so click that, not browser. I want it cloud. And here I want to give a name, such as square. Okay, and hit save. After you do that, I want you to go to Save As. Click on it, and then hit Share. Okay, and that's very important. It says, are you sure you want to publish Square? Say yes. Okay. Now, when you do that, notice that it becomes bolded here. Okay. That's actually very important. If you go to the URL, you'll find that it actually says project name is equal to Square and username is equal to Ruben G or whatever your username is. That is your confirmation that you're looking at a URL that is actually a URL that somebody else can go to and see your program. Okay. I want other people to go to and see your program because I need to be able to grade it. This is how I can grade it. So you'll take this URL, you'll copy it, and then when you actually submit your assignment, you will give me that URL and say, oh, there's my solution. That's what I need to be able to grade. Okay? So that's how you're going to turn in your solution to the next part. Okay? Any questions about that? It sounds really straightforward. Make sure that you actually log in, okay, and go through the process. Yeah, that's the URL in the chat to go to the page directly, okay? Go there and then make sure you log in and save with sharing. Otherwise, what you submit to me as the URL is that snap, which is generic, right? That doesn't tell me what it is. Okay, so let me go back to the modules. What I want to do now is I want to do what is known as Unit 1.3 of the Beauty and Joy of Computing curriculum. Some of the stuff that we talked about actually was in Units 1.1 and 1.2, and I just showed it to you without actually emphasizing where they came from. In fact, I may have done it a little bit different than what those units do. I actually want us to go to 1.3. I don't particularly want you to do this stuff that is under the to dive deeper or take it further if there's time. It's, you know, if you have time, go ahead and do some of those and impress me, but that's not necessary, okay? I want you to at least do what is there. Here is the URL to Unit 1.3. Okay, so you can just click on that URL, and remember, you get there from the course website. It is the current module, and the assignment is Unit 1.3. The other way to get to this URL is to use Google, and so you can actually just Google BJC, that is Beauty and Joy of Computing curriculum. Click on that. Just follow the links to the curriculum. I like to use the direct link, so I click on this, and then BJC curriculum. We're in Unit 1, Lab 3, okay? So here it is. There's a table of contents. Sorry, there's actually, when you click on this, then you get this little quick navigation bar that you can use to go through the individual units or lab components. So here's Lab 3. This is all part of Lab 3. So I want you to see all 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 pages. Okay. As part of the instructions, it will tell you to save this under this name it gives you 2 names. It actually does 3 activities. So the last one, name whatever you want. I name one art, okay? Unit 1 L3-art, U1 L3-art, following their convention. But we're gonna generate some pretty nice images. So I want you to take your time with this. I don't actually want you to be finished until next week. So you know, it's not a race, but the rest of this class, I want you to spend doing this. If you have any questions, go ahead and ask me in the chat. I will turn off the recording so that if you don't have questions, we don't just stay doing nothing while, you know, for other people to watch. But just real quickly, does anybody not understand what I want you to do?
Sorry.
Okay, so we have about 30 minutes. Let's hit it. And I'll keep continuing this outside of class. I'll actually give you another time, maybe a little longer on Thursday to try to finish this activity. All right, let me pause the recording and we'll go on. Oh, sorry. Before I do that, just a reminder that there are other assignments already that you should be doing. So, so if you look under the modules, I ask you to do the introduction of yourselves, the snap hour of code. Both of those are due this week. And then the discussion, computing innovation, unit 1.3, that's for next week, okay? But you should be able to get all those done. Now, the other thing I'm gonna mention once is that I see 21 people logged in right now. I see 7 people in my class roster. So that means that 1 out of every 3 of you, at least, because there are folks that are watching this in a recording, are not signed up for the class. Make sure that that gets done quickly enough that this actually counts for you, okay? So if you have questions, let me know, and I'll tell you if I have you on my list or not. All right, 30 minutes. Let's go ahead and start writing the program. Unit 1, Lab 3.
How do I get to that page?